What's that coming down the track? It's the mean machine in the red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan. Go Dogs!
In terms of motivation, I think a 3-point loss that cost you a chance at a three-peat, or at least a chance to defend your title for the second time and win a third one in a row, I think that's enough fuel for you the rest of the offseason.
The Georgia Bulldogs are unlike anything we have ever seen, and in terms of the sport of college football, they are approaching becoming a dynasty. Outside of Ohio State, they definitely have the best overall roster in college football by far, and the new playoff format definitely creates a new dynamic for almost everything. Last season did not go the Bulldogs' way, and some people late in the season were even calling the team a joke. But this year, I think they are very improved. But record-wise, they might not be, because this year they have to go to Bama, they have to go to Texas, they have to go to Ole Miss, and they have to play Tennessee late in the year. So a very tough slate. And by the time the college football playoff comes, they will be super battle-tested and prepared for anything. I want to talk about some of the transfers that Kirby Smart and the recruiters brought in. So first off, 4-star Trevor Ettiene, whose last name should sound very familiar to many of you. He's coming over from Florida. There's been a whole thing going on about him with a reckless driving case, so it's not the best start and impression to this team, but nonetheless, he is a super talented 5'9", 205-pound back who rushed for 925 yards and 9 touchdowns last season at Florida. So I think he's going to come in and provide a lot to this team. The next 4-star recruit they brought in is Xavier McLeod, a defensive lineman from South Carolina. This is the breakdown on him according to 247 Sports. He has verified size with plus wingspan, can move around on the defensive line, and shows athleticism and versatility to play nose or 3 technique. He is physical, is willing to take on blocks, and has stack and shed ability. He possesses body control and can sink hips and is disruptive in the middle of the line of scrimmage. McLeod was the lone freshman defensive tackle signed to be a big-time player for this program in the coming year. Moving on, the next guy I want to talk about is Colby Young, a wide receiver from Miami University. He's 6'5", so obviously he has some decent size to him. From the 2022 and 2023 seasons, the former Miami Hurricane has 79 receptions, 939 yards, and 10 touchdowns to his credit. The Binghamton, New York native was 3rd on the Hurricanes in catches and 3rd in targets, but one of his former teammates thinks there was more that the rising senior could have offered. We used him a lot this past year and probably could have used him more and really benefited from it, said Matt Lee, who started every game at center for Miami last season after transferring from UCF. Not to knock anybody, but I think that's the type of talent he has. I know within UM and the coaches and staff there was a very high opinion of him. His potential is with the talent that he has. He can be a really good player. Young went up and snagged an 11-yard fourth-quarter touchdown in one-on-one coverage against Nate Wiggins, a projected NFL first-round draft pick, in a game in which he had 6 catches for 76 yards. Young went up and grabbed another ball on an outside throw later to set up a field goal in a game Miami won 28-20 in double overtime. Moving on, the next guy I want to talk about is tight end Benjamin Urosek. He is a former All-Pac-12 tight end that brings good speed and consistent hands to the Georgia tight end room. Urosek has been very productive in his career, even though he has played on some awful Stanford teams. Man, there's just so much new talent on this team. I can't cover it all in one video. I mean, you got guys like Michael Jackson, Jake Pope, so many others. So let me know in the comments below what new guy you are most excited to see this season in a Georgia uniform. Alright, now moving on, I want to talk about what the outlook for the upcoming season actually is. Like I said, Georgia has a lot of tough games, so there could be 1 or 2 super close losses. But I mean, like I said, with the new playoff format, it's not a big deal. The Bulldogs will get their season started with a neutral site matchup against the Clemson Tigers at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. The Tigers certainly had a disappointing season in 2023, but it will provide an early look at how each team will fare down the rest of the stretch. Early betting lines indicate that Georgia will be a multiple score favorite, and Bulldog fans will find out what you can expect from this team very early. I think one game that is being overlooked a lot on Georgia's slate is the Ole Miss game. Last year, the game was a complete beatdown, and I don't think Ole Miss is gonna let anything like that happen again, and they still will have that bad taste in their mouth. Ole Miss went searching in the transfer portal to obtain some much-needed depth on both sides of the ball. With the expanded playoff coming into play this next season, the Rebels will likely be tabbed as a contender for one of those playoff spots, and by the time this game rolls around, it could end up having a major impact on the college football playoff seeding implications. Alright, now moving on. Even though Georgia ultimately didn't get to where they wanted to go last season, being a top 5 team year in and year out is still very impressive. So now, I want to look at and break down some of the plays and highlights from last season. So starting off right here, this play is all Thomas, and it's a lot more of a broken play than a highlight. He does a great job of getting himself open, Beck makes a great throw, and then Thomas makes a move back for a ton of extra yardage, basically like slipping himself into the open. And then right after, Edwards is able to punch it in the end zone with the pitch play. Next up, here at open in the end zone, they completely fooled Tennessee on this. And I know Georgia isn't necessarily a flashy team, but they have playmakers that are fundamentally sound and get the job done. I love the guys that Kirby Smart brings in every year. Here's what some of the media has to say about the outlook of this team as we head into 2024.
To beat Georgia in the last 3 seasons, just retired. And now Georgia is essentially unstoppable. So what he's saying here is Nick Saban just retired, and he's the only dude who's beaten Georgia these last 3 years. Also worth noting, the 2 losses that he handed Kirby Smart were both in the SEC title game. So, regular season, nobody's beaten Georgia. Okay.
That's really all I have to say for this video. Thank you all so much if you made it to this point. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this Georgia team as we start to get closer and closer to opening kickoff. And if you enjoyed this video and haven't yet, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe because your support truly does mean the world. And until next time, I will see you all later.